We are looking at 40 billion cubic meters of water held back by a single concrete spine. This is the Three Gorges Dam, the heaviest structure ever built by human hands.
It is also the single most critical point of failure for the global economy. If this wall breathes, the entire world feels the shockwave.
Forensic satellite imagery just flagged surface deformation in the spillway sections. We are talking about microcracks appearing where the hydrostatic pressure is at its absolute peak.
The CCP calls it elastic movement, but the insurance markets are screaming. A breach here would displace 400 million people in less than 12 hours.
In gravity dam engineering, elastic is a dangerous word. When concrete reaches its limit, it doesn't bend, it shatters into a billion projectiles.
Follow the money, Mark. This dam powers the Yangtze economic belt, which generates nearly half of China's total industrial output.
If those fissures allow water to reach the internal rebar, the corrosion will be invisible until the moment of total structural collapse.
We are talking about the black swan of infrastructure. Every major tech company in the West depends on the logistics flowing through this valley.
Imagine a wall of water 30 stories high, moving at 60 miles per hour. It would scrub every city downstream off the face of the map.
The financial cost is incalculable, likely exceeding $20 trillion in lost infrastructure and dead-stop global trade.
Most people see a wall of concrete. I see a massive battery under extreme tension, waiting for a single microscopic flaw to release all that energy.
And that flaw is already there. Recent thermal scans show heat signatures where there should be solid, cold material.
That heat means friction. Friction means movement. If the foundation is shifting on the bedrock, there is no way to stop the kinetic fall.
This isn't just a flood scenario, it's an extinction-level event for the modern supply chain. We're talking about the end of just-in-time manufacturing.
From an engineering standpoint, once the piping effect starts, the dam is already dead. The water literally eats the concrete from the inside out.
While the engineers panic, the analysts are watching the grain silos and the semiconductor plants. Everything downstream is in the kill zone.
You are standing in Wuhan, 300 miles away. You think you're safe, but the physics of a surge wave says you have less than 5 hours.
The geopolitical fallout would trigger a global depression. No power, no transport, and no government capable of managing a disaster this size.
We need to look at the sheer strength of that concrete. If the aggregate was poured during the 2006 pour, the clock is already at zero.
They rushed the construction to meet political deadlines. In the world of high-stakes business, cutting corners always leads to a graveyard.
Gravity is the one law you can't bribe. 40 billion tons of water are looking for the path of least resistance right now.
Let's open the technical file and see exactly where the first crack started. The logistics of the aftermath are even darker than the engineering.
It's time to look at the mechanics of the collapse. If you're downstream, your survival depends on understanding the speed of this failure.
This is the autopsy of a disaster that hasn't finished happening yet. The stakes are everything we've built in the last 50 years.
Let's get into the structural data. The numbers don't lie, even when the governments do. Let's dissect the structural anatomy of a catastrophic breach. We are talking about the piping effect, where high-pressure water forced through those micro-cracks begins to erode the internal concrete matrix. Once the internal aggregate starts to wash out, the dam loses its structural density and becomes a porous sponge. The hydrostatic pressure from the reservoir is pushing with the force of thousands of jet engines against a failing foundation. If the base of the dam slides just a few centimeters on its bedding plane, the entire gravity structure will tilt, causing a massive, instantaneous overtopping.
That's where the dark business of construction comes into play. Mark, during the primary pouring phase in the early 2000s, there were dozens of reports of tofu-dreg projects involving substandard cement and rusted rebar being sold by corrupt, state-owned subsidiaries. They laundered billions of dollars by swapping high-grade industrial materials for cheap, porous alternatives that are now literally dissolving under the weight of the Yangtze. This isn't just a technical failure. It's a multi-decade financial heist that traded long-term structural integrity for short-term political bonuses and offshore bank accounts.
The physics of the spillways are also failing because the sediment buildup at the base of the dam is reaching critical levels. This silt increases the density of the water, which in turn increases the shear force acting upon the lower gates. During a flood release, if a single gate jams due to mechanical fatigue or electrical failure, the resulting turbulence will create a cavitation effect. Cavitation bubbles implode with enough force to tear chunks of solid steel and concrete right out of the structure, effectively drilling holes through the dam from the inside out.
And the logistical nightmare is that there is no plan B for the cooling systems of the nuclear reactors downstream. If the dam fails, the power grid collapses instantly, and the backup generators for those reactors will be submerged under 40 feet of mud and debris. We are looking at a Fukushima-scale event multiplied by 10 across the entire industrial heartland of China. The global insurance markets have no model for this because the total loss of the Yangtze supply chain would effectively delete the world's ability to manufacture medical supplies and electronics for at least a decade.
From a survival POV, if you are in the path of this kinetic energy, you need to understand that water is not your only enemy. The surge wave will carry millions of tons of pulverized concrete, cars, and industrial chemicals, turning the flood into a liquid grinding machine. If the dam's A-frame sections buckle, the release of energy will be equivalent to a low-yield nuclear detonation in terms of raw atmospheric pressure. You won't just be drowning. The air pressure from the advancing wall of water will collapse buildings before the liquid even touches them.
The Chinese government knows the math, which is why they've been quietly building massive diversion canals that are still nowhere near ready. They've spent billions on PR campaigns to suppress the satellite data we're looking at right now. But the capital flight tells the real story. High-level elites have been moving their assets into physical gold and foreign real estate away from the coastal impact zones for the last 18 months. They are hedging against the inevitable collapse of the domestic banking system that would follow a Three Gorges breach.
We are seeing thermal blooms in the latest infrared scans of the dam's central core, which suggests deep-seated friction. This means the concrete is grinding against itself under the shifting weight of the reservoir's seasonal fluctuations. Every time the water level rises during the monsoon, the dam is stressed beyond its design parameters, creating new pathways for water to penetrate the gallery levels. Once the water hits the electrical turbine's housing, the short circuits will trigger a chain reaction of explosions that will blow the dam apart from the generator hall outward.
It's a classic case of a too-big-to-fail asset becoming a too-big-to-save liability. The cost of a controlled decommissioning is so high that the government has decided to gamble on the dam's survival instead of admitting the engineering flaws. They are prioritizing the appearance of stability over the lives of 400 million people and the global economy's pulse. This is a debt that gravity is coming to collect, and the interest rate is paid in human lives and the total destruction of the world's most vital trade artery.
The clock is ticking on the concrete's curing cycle, which has already passed its peak performance window. We are in the fatigue era of the Three Gorges, where every minor tremor from the reservoir's immense weight, which has literally shifted the Earth's rotation slightly, is creating new failure points. If a seismic event hits the region, even a moderate one, the liquefaction of the surrounding soil will turn the dam's foundation into quicksand. The entire 600-foot wall will simply tip over into the abyss.
Let's look at the follow-the-money trail of the emergency repairs. Millions of tons of high-strength epoxy are being pumped into the dam's cracks in the middle of the night, hidden from international inspectors. They are trying to glue a mountain back together, but you can't fight the hydrostatic pressure of an entire river system with chemical adhesives. The investors who are still long on Chinese manufacturing are essentially betting against the laws of thermodynamics, and that is a bet that nobody in history has ever won.
The final verdict is a matter of terminal velocity. Once the breach hits the 10% threshold, the remaining 90% of the dam becomes a kinetic projectile. We are talking about a debris field that will stretch from Yichang all the way to Shanghai. The sheer weight of the water will scour the riverbed down to the bedrock, removing every bridge, every power line, and every communication cable in a 500-mile radius. In terms of engineering, this isn't just a failure. It's a total geographical reset of the Asian continent.
And the geopolitical aftermath will be a vacuum that the world isn't prepared to fill. With China's primary industrial heartland under 20 meters of silt, the global just-in-time supply chain will undergo a violent seizure. Every smartphone, medical device, and automotive part scheduled for export will be vaporized. This would trigger a hyperinflationary event in the West that would make the 1920s look like a minor market correction. Governments will fall because they can no longer provide the basic goods their citizens require to survive.
If you are in a survival scenario during the surge, your only hope is verticality and distance. You need to be at least 50 meters above the floodplain and 20 miles away from the main channel to avoid the main atmospheric shockwave. Most people will try to flee in vehicles, but the gridlock will turn the highways into mass graves. The sound of the collapse will be heard 1,000 miles away, a low-frequency boom that signals the end of the industrial era as we know it. Physics is cold, and it has no mercy for poor planning.
The dark business conclusion is that the Three Gorges Dam has become a sunk cost fallacy on a planetary scale. The elite have their exit strategies, their bunkers, and their offshore gold. But the global middle class will pay the ultimate price for this engineering arrogance. We are looking at a permanent shift in the world's power balance when the water finally recedes. The map of the world will be different, and the cost of rebuilding will bankrupt every major insurance conglomerate on Earth. The money won't just be gone. The system that creates it will be broken.
We've analyzed the cracks, the corrosion, and the catastrophic potential. The data suggests we aren't asking if anymore, but when the next record-breaking monsoon provides the final gram of pressure needed to shatter the concrete. Engineering is about respect for the forces of nature, and the Three Gorges is the ultimate monument to human disrespect. When the wall goes, it will be the loudest lesson in history. Stay sharp, watch the water levels, and never trust a structure that was built on a foundation of lies and cut corners.
The economic fallout is the final nail in the coffin. A dead Yangtze means a dead global economy for a generation. The logistics of the cleanup alone would take 50 years and more resources than the world currently has in reserve. We are moving into an era of extreme infrastructure fragility, where one microcrack in a distant dam can end the world you see through your window. Check your gear, diversify your assets, and keep your eyes on the thermal scans. The history of the future is being written in the fissures of that concrete right now.
The file is closed, but the pressure is still building. Physics is patient, but it always wins. Stay sharp.
And follow the money before it washes away. Check your gear,